insightful, and a simple brilliance. Listen in to a short conversation from Douglas Murray. On the flip side, I'll share some Jewish thoughts on how to further understand what he says.
Find me a pro-Hamas, anti-Israel protest in America that has anyone carrying an American flag. Yeah. Find me a protest of that ilk that ever finishes with the singing of the Star-Spangled Banner.
Right.
There hasn't been one. There never will be one.
Or how about if it was a pro-Palestinian protest, then someone condemning Hamas, let's say, and at least saying that, right, you'd get lynched.
There's a brave young Iranian in London who occasionally turned out the anti-Israel protests with a sign saying Hamas is a terrorist organization, which is the designation by almost all Western governments. And every single time the pro-Palestinian protesters attacked him physically. And that should tell us something about this movement. But just to go back to this thing, nobody who does those anti-Israel protests is pro-American. Mm-hmm. They're not. In the same way that you'll notice that the pro-Israel protests that do sometimes happen, the pro-Israel rallies that have happened occasionally in America and elsewhere, they're always filled not just with Israeli flags, but American flags. And if you go to any of the small number of pro-Israel rallies in, say, Britain, they all finish with, they always have, Israeli flags and British flags, and they finish with the singing of Hatikva, the Israeli national anthem, and the singing of God Save the King. It is impossible to conceive of a pro-Palestinian protest finishing with the singing of God Save the King. That tells us something. That tells us something. In fact, maybe it tells us everything. These people hate Israel first, but they hate America and the rest of the West next. And they're coming for the rest of us next. And therefore, we should decide whether we have a benign and tolerant attitude toward these people or not. And I think we should not have a benign attitude towards them, and we should not be overly tolerant of them either.
We shouldn't be overly tolerant. Maybe we shouldn't be tolerant at all, really, is what he's saying. But I like his ingest. There's an interesting law in Judaism that if a group of vigilantes are coming on the Sabbath, and Sabbath is a holy day for the Jewish people, we don't work, definitely don't go out to war, and these vigilantes they're only coming for straw. They want to just take some straw. And this is a border town. You have to go out on Shabbos with your weapons and, get them far away from you. Observance of the Sabbath is so important. They're only coming for straw. Big deal. So you'll lose some straw? At least don't lose your Sabbath. No. Sabbath observance is put on the side, or rather, the observance of Sabbath is proper by now going out and battling these vigilantes, or whatever you want to call them, or just thieves, actually probably better. These thieves, and make sure that they don't steal your straw. And the reasoning is given is because today they come for straw, tomorrow they'll come for money, and your possessions, more valuable possessions. And then the day after they'll come for your lives. So start at the beginning, nip it in the bud. That's what needs to be done. Well, as the old saying, the Jew is the canary in the coal mine. And that's what Douglas Murray is alluding to. Right, they're coming for the Jew today, but they're coming for the rest of Western civilization tomorrow. So what needs to be done is nip it in the bud at the beginning. Don't be tolerant. Don't be tolerant. Had here in Montreal, there was a protest. This goes back a while, and the police were very soft, if you will. Even allowing people to go on people's property, private property. A friend of mine, actually a dear friend of mine, protesters went on his private property, and the police did nothing. He even went over to the police and say, "Hey, why don't you get them? They're on private property. Not allowed to do that. Why don't you get them off?" So, "Oh, we don't want to start off because maybe we'll inflame things." That's the mistake. That's the mistake. You come for straw, you only start with straw, then you go for more valuable things, and then you go for life. All in some places, protests were nipped in the bud right away, and because of that, there's a lot more peaceful environment in those towns, in those cities, in those places. That's the appropriate way to deal with it. Don't be soft and say, "Well, listen, if we inflame things, if we start up with them, we'll just inflame them and they'll." No, they need to learn a lesson. The same thing is with a thief. Petty crime. Petty crime. Let them out of prison. It's only petty crime. No. If you don't teach them a lesson with petty crime, from petty becomes organized big crime. Yeah, that's an important lesson we all that people need to learn. Society needs to learn. The leaders in society, but we can't allow evil to stand for a moment.